Alright, hi everyone, and welcome back to Product Training with Blue Triangle. In today's session, we'll be going through how to create and manage synthetic monitors. And we'll also touch on a couple of common challenges you might face when doing this yourself. So we'll start with some of the basic configuration and setup, then get into some of the common use cases where we'll need to use special configurations and settings in order to accomplish what we need. Before we get started, a couple of things I'd like to mention quickly. The first is you'll receive an email right after we're done here with a link to watch the recording. And if you'd like to share with someone, we will also be posting the recording in our Help Center at help.bluetriangle.com a little later today. Alright, and for those of you who are new to our product trainings, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you here. So my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and I do these training sessions each week about all kinds of topics related to web performance, analytics, and really solving problems using Blue Triangle. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the agenda today, we'll start with a basic introduction in terms of managing synthetic monitors. So we'll go through quickly how to create a single page synthetic monitor, and then we'll get into multi-page synthetic monitoring and what the difference is between synthetic scripts and synthetic monitors. As we get into some of these common challenges, we're going to start with just kind of the basics about how to build MultiStep scripts, upload them to Blue Triangle, and kick them off on a run schedule. And then after that, we'll talk about a few more of some of these common challenges, like monitoring a username password protected site. This was an issue that had come up a couple of times recently, and I'll walk you through how that can be done today as well. And the last thing we'll get into is in the example of an A/B test that we'd like to set up where one page is normal and the other page is loaded without a particular domain or file. So that would be domain/request blocking. In Blue Triangle, we call that blacklist filtering, and I'll show you how to configure that to accomplish that A/B test configuration as well. And then finally, we'll go through any questions that you guys have and answer those with you. Alright, so I'm not going to bore you guys today with a long presentation of slides. I'm actually going to go ahead and jump into Blue Triangle Live, and we'll do the rest of the training from there. Alright, so here we are in Blue Triangle, and we are in the synthetic monitors section right now. You can get here under the synthetic monitoring over here on the left, and if you go down to the bottom, you click Manage, and then Synthetic Monitors here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just walk through setting up a basic single page synthetic monitor. So to do that, we're going to go over here to the top left and hit Create, and Single Page Synthetic Monitor. And I'll just mention briefly, we have done a few product trainings in the past on, for example, the MultiStep API monitoring and synthetic monitoring generally. So we have done trainings of this in the past that'll go into a little more detail if you're interested. But I just want to bring everyone up to speed on how creating a synthetic monitor in Blue Triangle works. All right, you're going to click Create Synthetic Monitor, Single Page Synthetic Monitor there. And since we've done those previous trainings, we've actually added a new wizard, which makes setting these up a lot easier for the basic configuration. So I'm going to do that for this example. The first thing you'll do is give your monitor a name. I'm going to call it Demo Monitor 2. The next thing is we're going to define the URL we want to measure. For this, we're going to do bluetriangle.com, and then give it a page name. So this will be Blue Triangle Homepage. The page group and traffic segment, these can be used to categorize your synthetic traffic, much like you do for real user monitoring. So, if you have an A-B segment, you can use the traffic segment for the A and the B. You can also just name the page whatever you like. So whatever works best for you can be done. All right, the next thing is we're going to set the synthetic agent locations that this monitor is going to run from. You have a list of them here, and typically 4, 5, or 6 is pretty common, but 1 or 2 is fine as well. So for this example, we'll just choose Seattle and Washington, D.C. The next thing is the device. So by default, we'll run this monitor on a desktop device, but you can also choose mobile emulation. And when you do that, you can choose from any of these, this long list of devices that you can emulate in Google Chrome. We'll just do desktop for this example though. So moving on, the next thing is the schedule. So by default, this monitor is going to run indefinitely, but if you'd like to just run it for a particular period of time and then have it expire, you can do that. You can set the kickoff and end times here using this calendar, and then for this we'll just keep it indefinite. And then below is the frequency, which is how often the monitor is going to run from each of the configured locations, and you can configure that here. The next thing is function tracing, which is kind of a new feature in Blue Triangle, which collects the JavaScript function and performance data while the synthetic monitor collects its measurement. And you can see that in kind of a waterfall graph in the test results for the measurements. And these are settings related to collecting the function tracing. So obviously whether it's enabled or disabled, the collection percentage is how many measurements, or rather the percentage of measurements that are actually going to collect the function tracing. So you can set this a little lower if maybe you're only allotted a certain number. And then the minimum function duration is just as it sounds. It's any JavaScript functions that run slower, or rather quicker than 5 milliseconds, we won't even worry about capturing. So you can configure this to make sure you're only collecting the slowest running JavaScript functions. And then the maximum function count is the total number of functions that we'll capture for the waterfall. All right, so that is really all there is to it for a single page monitor. The last step here is just to review your configuration. We got our name, we've set our URL and page name, and we're fine with the default page group and traffic segment. We've set it to run from Seattle and Washington on a desktop device indefinitely for every 15 minutes from each of those locations, and we have our function tracing collection set at the defaults. Also down here you can see your usage details as it relates to your contracts, your contract, and you can see it by month and by contract year. Also, so we're going to go ahead and click create, and when you do that you'll be able to see the projected usage. This is a measurement running function tracing, so these are specific measurements, and so this is why we're talking about function traces, but you'll get the same thing whether you have function tracing enabled or not. And we're going to go ahead and agree to save this and create it. And after you do that, I actually have my my filtering on the disabled, but I can clear that out and find my demo monitor 2. And here it is in the table. So it just kicked off, and the frequency is at 15 minutes, so we should expect some data within the next 5 or 10 minutes. So that is how to create a basic synthetic monitor. And the next thing I wanted to discuss is multi-step monitoring and creating synthetic scripts. So to make a synthetic script, this could be for your checkout flow or really any multi-step process on your site that you'd like to test synthetically. We're going to go over to the synthetic scripts page. And before I mentioned I was going to discuss the relationship between synthetic scripts and synthetic monitors. And the way that works is, the scripts are separate from the monitors in that you build a synthetic script and the synthetic monitor will run that script. So what we're going to do is create a synthetic script. We'll run through Catalan and test the script and upload it into Blue Triangle here, and then we're going to go back over to the synthetic monitors and create one of these multi-step scripts and then choose that script to run. Alright, so the way we do this, like I mentioned, is Catalan. This is a Selenium IDE recorder. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So you'll see I've already created a demo script here, and I'm going to go through this with you with a new script. So what we're going to do is add a new test suite. We're going to call it demo blue triangle script new 2. Okay, and under that test suite we're going to create a test case, and we'll just call that the same thing, demo blue triangle script new 2. Alright, and what's really cool about Catalan is you can actually record your browser actions and the script automatically builds itself. So to do that, you're just going to click this record button, and we're going to record this script for our Blue Triangle website. So we're going to open up the page at bluetriangle.com, and then we're going to click to go to our real user monitoring module. And then we're going to click over to our blog. And if we open back up the Catalan window, you'll notice that it registered each of these actions. And I'm going to stop the recording here. And a good thing to always do after you make one of these recordings is to play it back to make sure the script is going to work. Depending on the complexity of what you're trying to do, it can create some commands that won't actually work. But for this simple 3-step script here, I don't expect any problems. But I'm going to go ahead and just play that back and make sure everything's okay. And we're all green, so we know that it worked. So this is great. There's one more thing we're going to need to do before we go ahead and save and upload this script to Blue Triangle, and that is creating the step names. So the way we do that is we actually use the store command, and in front of each step we specify the store command, and then the target is the page name. So this first one is going to be our home page, and the value is step name 1. So that's for the home page, and then this one will create one more, 2 more actually, but for the second step, this will be for our real user monitoring page, and this will be step name 2. We'll do that one more time here for the third step. This will be our blog page as the target, and again the value, this is going to increment each time, so this will be now step name 3. Alright, so we can just run this one more time to confirm there's no issues, and everything is looking good, and we're all green. So I'm going to go ahead and save this now. We're going to save the test suite as multi-page. Let me find my folder here. And we're going to call this demo blue triangle script new 2. All right. So we have our script now, and we're going to upload it to Blue Triangle. So in these synthetic scripts, we're going to click Create Synthetic Script. You can actually do this manually if you're familiar enough with Selenium, but we find it's typically easier to create it in Catalan or a Selenium IDE, and from there you're able to test and confirm. And then now we're going to upload that script file. So we'll click this button. We'll find our script. So now you can see that it fills into the page here, and you'll notice that it used those store commands to categorize the script into its various steps. So we have the home page, real user monitoring, and the blog. If you have passwords in your script, there will be an option to make sure those are encrypted. But for this, we'll just click this button here to confirm there's no passwords in our script. And we can click Create, and here we have our script all loaded into the portal. Now right now the script is just standing alone, it's not running. And like I mentioned, to make it start running, we're going to go back over to our synthetic monitors page, and we're going to create a multi-step real browser synthetic monitor. So I'm going to just use the name of the script we just created here for the name of the monitor. And this is the advanced configuration. And a little different than the single page configuration. Instead of a URL, you're going to have your script selector here. And we're going to choose the blue triangle script new 2, which is the one we just created. And if you do have multiple versions of this script, if you made changes, you'll see those different versions available here. Alright, and the last thing we need to do for just the basic setup here is select a couple of locations, and there's a lot more configuration you can do here, but for the sake of this demo, everything we need is configured. So we're going to go down to the bottom, review changes, and click create. So just like our single page monitor, we'll be able to find that new script and running as a monitor in this table here, and you'll be able to see the data within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Alright, so we've talked about how to create a basic single page monitor, and we've talked about how to create a multi-step script and how the relationship between scripts and synthetic monitors works in Blue Triangle. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about some common challenges that some of our customers face when using Blue Triangle for their synthetic monitoring. So one of them, the first use case we have is monitoring a website with username and password protection around it. So this is just an example website here that is specifically designed for this purpose. It's just for testing, and the username and password is guest. And I'll just go ahead and log in to this website and show you what it looks like here. So in order to load the page properly, I had to type in the guest username and password, but A synthetic monitor without any special configuration isn't smart enough to do that. We're going to need to specify the username and password somehow. Now, one thing you'll notice if you've ever had this problem before, using a MultiStep script is not going to work. The prompt that appears for the username and password is not actually part of the web page. It's just a browser window that requires a special header, or in other words, the basic authentication header. So in order to load the page properly with our synthetic monitor, we're going to want to apply that basic authentication header. So I'm going to just clear my history to make sure that we can get that username password prompt to show up again. So here we are, and there's a really cool tool to use for testing in this case, which is, it's called mod header. It's just a browser extension, and it allows you to add or modify headers as on requests that are made across the network on your site. So for this one, we're going to use the basic authentication header. Essentially, the name and value is, the name is authorization, and the value is basic space, and then the base 64 encoded version of the username / password. And if you'd like some more information about that, you can do a quick Google search on how basic authentication works. But I've already set this up here, and so this should work for us just fine. So to start adding headers to our requests, all you need to do is, in this plugin, is check that box, and now you'll see that it's active. So what we'll do is just refresh this page, and then once that initial request to this jigsaw.w3.org website is made, this header is going to add the basic authentication, which is going to go ahead and apply the username and password here and bypass the manual sign-in to properly load the page. And that is what that looks like. So how would we go about doing this in Blue Triangle? So I'm going to have to log in again here quickly. And I'll make my way back over to the synthetic monitors. So we're going to create another demo single page monitor and show you how to do this basic authentication. Basic authentication demo 2. So we have our monitor name, and I'll go ahead and apply that as the page name as well. So, and then I'm going to grab this URL here and set it up there. Get rid of that beginning part there. I'm going to set my locations just like you usually would. We'll just use Seattle for this one. And then the key configuration piece here is, if you scroll down to the browser configuration section, what we're going to do is add a header. And it's just a simple name value that you can input here. And so we're going to copy what we have here from our mod header plugin, authorization, and basic, and that's the base 64 encoded username and password. And these headers are going to be applied on the request to the web page. You can actually add additional headers here as well if needed. All right, so as always, we can go down, review our changes, and click Create to add that monitor. And I'll just bring that one up here. Basic authentication test. We were authentication demo 2. And here we can see our monitor at jigsaw.w3.org, and we have our basic authentication header applied, and that will do the trick for you. All right, the last thing we're going to cover today is how to set up an A/B test to use domain or request blocking. So a good example for this is sometimes, let's say you'd like to measure your website with and without a tag to compare how it affects the performance of the site. So for this example, we're gonna pull up our Blue Triangle website, and we're gonna see what it's like to load our page without Google Analytics. So in the DevTools, type in Google, you can find right at the top here is Google Analytics. I think most folks are familiar with their analytics.js file. So in the DevTools, the way you can actually load the page without this file is by finding it in the Network tab. And if you right click, you can actually block request URL. You can either block the URL or the domain. So I'm gonna just block the domain here. All right, so now if I refresh the page, what we'll see here is that the analytics.js from Google Analytics, you can see that the status is blocked by DevTools. So what you're able to do in Blue Triangle is the same thing. You can set up a synthetic monitor to load your website normally as an A/B test, and then the other version of the page, you can set up this request blocking to load the website without that domain or file. So now I'm going to show you how to do that in Blue Triangle. This can be done for a single page or a multi-page monitor. Just like the basic authentication, you can apply that header to a MultiStep script as well. But for this example, we'll just create a single page monitor. All right, so this will be a domain blocking example 1. So I'm gonna assume we've already set up another synthetic monitor that's loading our home page. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna call this Blue Triangle home page without Google Analytics. All right, so I'm going to set that as the page name, and we're going to assume we've already created a monitor called Blue Triangle Homepage with Google Analytics, and we're going to load bluetriangle.com. We're going to set our agent locations. And once again, a lot of the defaults here are okay, but the key configuration item is just like the header, it's in the browser configuration section. And what we're going to use is a blacklist filter. So you can either exclude domains or files or anything from a file path by using this syntax as defined here. So you can either specify HTTP or HTTPS or either. You do your : / we'll choose any host name Google. I already have it saved there, but just as we'll go ahead and copy the googleanalytics.com domain from here. And then we're going to specify the /* for any files loading from that domain. So this would be how to block the Google Analytics domain. And I can go ahead and save this monitor and create it, and that will be good for my A/B test. But I'd also like to show how it can be done. Let's say there's another file from Google Analytics that you would like to load, but you don't want to load the analytics.js. So in that case, you can actually just copy the entire URL path. As a matter of fact, it'd be easier to go in here and copy the link address. So this is going to be the full URL for analytics.js from Google. And this, by copy and pasting that in, this will accomplish the same thing. So as you can see in the syntax kind of guide here, this is a valid syntax as well. And you can apply as many of these as you'd like. So maybe you'd like to block more than one tag. You could specify another tag here as well, or domain. All right, and we'll go ahead and create this. And we can pull up our Blue Triangle homepage without Google Analytics. And here we can see our A/B test. One thing I forgot to mention is instead of naming the page with or without Google Analytics, you could also just apply a traffic segment. As you become more comfortable using the filter options in Blue Triangle and the data and analytics pages, you'll get a feel for which method you'd like to use, or which you'd think is best for you. All right, so just to kind of summarize what we've gone through today, we discussed how to create a basic single-page real browser synthetic monitor, and then we got into how to build a synthetic script using a tool like Catalan, and once that's done, how to load it into Blue Triangle, and then how to create a multi-step monitor to actually run that script. And then we got into some more common challenges, one of them being how to set up a synthetic monitor to measure a username password protected website using a basic authentication header. And then finally we covered an example where we wanted to run an A/B test where the page is loaded normally as one option, and then the page is loaded without Google Analytics as another option. And this can be done at the domain level or at the file level. And using the syntax, it can be done in a variety of ways. So that's all I had for today's training. I'm going to open the slides back up, and I'm going to check the chat and the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. With that, guys, we appreciate your time. And if you do have any further questions, we're always happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can use any of the emails listed here, or you can also reach us here in support anytime via the Help Center at help.bluetriangle.com. For more information about Blue Triangle product training, like how to watch past sessions, how to register for upcoming ones. Be sure to check out our help center. Again, that's help.bluetriangle.com. And when you're there, just click the big button for product training. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great day.